Welcome. We're back with another episode of Coffee with April. This time we're gonna walk you through this month's coffee subscription here at April. And it's a really exciting coffee. It's a really interesting coffee. It's a coffee we picked because right now we believe this is tasting one of the best coffees that we have at the moment. When I say that, I reference especially the cleanliness of this coffee, which I think is pretty extraordinary. To walk you through it and to give you some kind of details here, this coffee is from Costa Rica. And most of you guys already know that we're really into Costa Rican coffees. We think those are one of the best tasting, most complex, cleanest coffees you can find. And I think what really makes those interesting is the level and quality of the wet mill and the dry mill processing, which in Costa Rica is unprecedented. It's amazing. It's truly a craftsmanship that goes into it, which sure enough makes these coffees priced a tiny bit higher because what they do is expensive, labor cost is high, and so on and so on. But the quality that comes out, the final product is so good, so we have a hard time resisting it. Now, this coffee very specifically comes from an area in Costa Rica called San Isidro, which is in the region of Tarazú. The farm is Santa Rosa. Now, there's a lot of Santa Rosa in Costa Rica, different farms. So don't get confused. More specifically, the farmer is Marlon Urena. Now, this is a 300 kilo micro lot with washed processed Catuai exclusively. Vacuum packed, harvested in early last year, more specifically February of 2018. And I think it's fair to say that we're pretty amazed over how well this coffee is still tasting. I mean, it is a coffee that is 1 year old and is still tasting fantastic. One of the main characters we're getting in this coffee here is definitely a lot of nougat, a lot of lemon, a lot of cherry. I think it's one of the first Costa Rican coffees where I'm getting as much lemon character in it. I'm not necessarily referencing a very acidic coffee here, but it's just a flavor. It's a very clear tone of kind of candied lemon in this coffee, which we think is really interesting. Now, as always, we walk you through the roasting process as well. I have the curve in front of me. Now, this is a very simplistic style of roasting, and we tend to do this more and more with coffees that are aging, coffees that are getting a bit on the old side, not necessarily from a taste perspective, but from when it was actually harvested. And this coffee here, again, it's a 12 kilo batch and a 15 kilo lowering. That's always important to understand. And we try to be we are very consistent with a batch size. 12 kilos what we roast. And this is basically what we look at as 75% burner all the way through. So this is actually a roast where we haven't done any burner changes within that roast. I've had this discussion with a friend of mine over social media as well, quite recently, where another roaster far away, and we discussed this, and I said, well, you know, just put one burner setting on the specific coffee that he had, and I said, look at these numbers here and see what comes out of it. And we're getting some really interesting results with that. I mean, again, it's a very simplistic way to roast, but on coffees that are a tiny bit older, it gets really important. We're still referencing some for us very important parts of the roast, of course, but the baseline of that is basically one burner setting. The profile in itself is 10 minutes long, which for us is on the shorter side of roasting. Again, we can kind of continue to roast longer and longer, a long roast being 12 and a short roast being 10 minutes. The time after crack, which I know a lot of you are very interested in, is 1 minute and 11 seconds. Now, this is slightly longer than what we're used to. The reason for that is the origin of the coffee. We find quite often the Central American coffees have a harder time to pick up color when roasting, which is most likely due to varietal, climate, processing, all of this. So what we do is that we give that a bit more time. I know some of you want to know the percentage ratio of this development time. I'm not going to tell you because it's not really important. The important is the time after, not the percentage. End temperature here is around 205 degrees, which is a slightly lighter profile. So what we've done here is that we stretch out the time after crack, but we're actually stepping down on our end temperature with about 1 degree, which does make a big difference here, right? So it's basically, we still want to keep a really light, vibrant, clean, transparent profile, which is the important part here. And to be able to do that, if we're stretching out the time after crack, we actually need to go back on the end temperature a tiny bit. And overall, this has just been a super exciting coffee to have. Again, it's a 300 kilo micro lot. We had the exclusivity on it, and with this shipment, we're basically out of the coffee. So it's not going to be much more of it, but we're really excited to be able to actually share it. And we hope all of you enjoy it. And if you guys have any questions or any thoughts on it, as always, just comment down here. Thank you guys for subscribing. If you're not subscribing, maybe try subscribing. It's pretty cool coffees, and we're trying to share as much as we can with this process. Thank you.